Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Coroner. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's focus on the crime of the episode. It involves this, what was he like, scientist, like he was an assistant with this place. His name was Brad. They find him dead. Obviously there's marks on his body because it seems like it's like from like the rats or whatever. But obviously, like he was assisting this woman Sue, who's basically working on dealing with a specific type of dementia, which turns out it's the same dementia that Jenny's dad had. And the entire time when she's working this case, she can't help but obviously it's like, what, this is stuff you're working on, trying to counter this, and it gives her hope, because it's just like no one should, have to lose someone from dementia like that. And obviously for Jenny, I think, it's just one of those sad things where I think there's no real cure for it, and she knows what the road ahead. Like, obviously things are already kind of bad with her dad, because obviously Liam's there with him, and he was, missed out with the grilled cheese and everything. So you'll always worry about calls like that, but even then you just know what is at the end of the road for that disease. So I think I can understand that thing of just, it's with anything. You want to, do anything you can to help the people you love, especially in her case. It's like her dad and everything, nevertheless, sorry, I'm just kind of losing my train of thought there. But obviously we end up meeting like her companion, because the whole thing was about like Brad, because obviously there was like Erica who didn't like Brad because it's like he didn't deserve that position. I got better grades than him, had a better like GPA and stuff like that, and it's just like I it's like Brad doesn't even have someone in his family that has it. So it's for her, she looks at it as like he's just part of this. At first she's thinking like he was basically a mole sent by the competitor who's also working on the thing. I even love her being like, wait, I'm trying to actually get a job there, so there's like a coroner confidentiality, right? And Jenny's like, yeah, no, that's not a thing. I was like, oh, poor lady, poor Erica. But we end up finding out the other company, the competing company that's also dealing with this particular lane of dementia, is run by Sue's twin sister Ambrosia. So, and obviously at first it's kind of like, oh, you two live together and everything, and so you've never met Brad, there's not going to be any security cameras and stuff, they say. And obviously like Ambrosia was kind of making it clear, like she says like, oh, all these people work here and stuff like that, but she was so certain. That to me was the immediate thing of like, how can you be so certain? You said there's so many people that work not only in this particular building, but it's kind of like a larger scale operation. So like there's other people at other facilities. So it's like, how could you not? So, but obviously Jenny, trying to get help for her dad, even suggesting it to her dad later on. And he was excited for it because he says, oh, this is something that could help me, And I think for her, it's like the fact is that he was all about it too. Like, I think that solidified it even more, making her even more hopeful about it. But as the episode progresses, you learn, obviously, like Brad's death doesn't seem like it might have been an accident. Because at first you were like, oh, maybe, what he was using to kill the rats, maybe he accidentally inhaled it himself. But it's like, it's not enough to kill a human. Because obviously we get our new pathologist, Casey. And I love River being like, oh, I think I'm going to like you. And he's like, you already like me. But when it's all said and done, though, at first it's like I said, like it looks like potassium was injected into him. So it's definitely looking more and more like murder. And I thought it was kind of an interesting development with the case when we ended up finding out like that. Because obviously, we find out that his mom has Huntington's disease. And then it's like we find out like the stuff that Jenny ends up figuring out he was being used as a lab rat himself, which obviously is like not really irony. I don't know if irony would be the right word, because obviously he euthanizes rats and he himself was becoming a lab rat. So it's like, well, why would Sue do that? Because it would mean losing everything that she's gained. But then we find out we never actually met Sue. We met Ambrosia both times. Ambrosia was pretending to be Sue as well as being herself, because the real Sue, her Huntington's disease is far more advanced than Ambrosia's. But even it's like your twin, so it's like, well, there's some other factors that made it so that yours escalate. But it's like they've been doing human research on it, like they've been testing stuff out, and obviously it had some ramifications on Sue. Like obviously it seemed like it started off working fine, but then eventually it got it did more damage to Sue. So now it's like, because Brad was going to expose them, and so that's why they ended up killing him. But the thing is, we don't 100% know who actually did it. Was it Sue? Was it Ambrosia? Because Sue's willing to take it because she's like, I'm living a death sentence. My situation is what it is. But Ambrosia is like, no, you look here, you'll find the mark. I'm the one that did it. So they're both being arrested, but it's like, one did it out of self-preservation, the other one did it out of, this whole thing, so it's just like both of them willing to do whatever it takes to save each other, and I think, because obviously, like I said, Ambrosia has it as well, but like obviously Sue's situation is a lot worse because of what they've been doing. And honestly, I think, it's an interesting parallel because what they're willing to do to save each other, the people that they care about and love. Obviously, Jenny can understand that, obviously doing what she's doing this episode. It's like, oh, were you even working on something for dementia? But it's like, yeah, she was. But obviously for her, the biggest thing was finding a cure for Huntington's disease because, her and her sister, like obviously, like I said, it's worse with her sister, but so it was kind of sad. But like that's why Brad ended up, ultimately, being killed by them. So it's a sad ending. Like it's just like a, it's justice, but even then, it's just like that complicated gray area. Like, yeah, they both did wrong. I mean, once again, we still don't 100% know who actually did the killing, but because both of them are trying to take blame, and in particular in Sue, because Sue probably feels like I have even less time to you, so I've already got the death sentence. I'm not going to let you rot away in jail. But regardless of it all, both companies are being shut down because of all this like fraud, because doing all this illegal research of human testing and stuff like that. And obviously it's like Jenny, for her it's like, yeah, I was hopeful for this, this potentially helping my dad, but I'd rather have him as he is now, at least, rather than him not having him all together, So there's this slight silver lining to it all in that regard, but it's still just kind of, a sad situation. I'm sure it didn't come up, but I'm sure like hearing this whole thing of like, if I don't have my sister, like, because one's willing to make the sacrifice, because it's like, I can't live in this world without my sister. And there's almost this moment you catch of Jenny kind of almost being taken back by it, because I think probably like her circumstances with her sister, I think maybe that kind of triggered something. We didn't dive into it, but I think a combination of maybe what her dad's going through with his dementia, will also what she's going through with dealing with her situation, because obviously her therapist was taking her through it in the beginning. It's like, okay, if you're feeling nothing, then kind of latch onto that. And obviously it's like she kept seeing stuff, obviously the fire, and then her stopping that lady in the first episode from going inside, and just like there's something there, she's just not really diving into it because she doesn't want to. So that was kind of an interesting thing. They kind of, even toned this out with a little bit more of levity. I like the whole Malik situation in this episode, him and Donovan. Obviously, because I was wondering why we hadn't seen her, but it turns out like Taylor had transferred and everything. And I love, he's like, oh yeah, Taylor said that you should start calling me Imrex. And it's like, no, that was you. You're probably lying about that. Maybe she did. And he's like, oh, you're still in contact with Taylor? He's like, yo, like, or what? Like, yeah, just because she transferred and everything doesn't mean you have to cut them out of your life. He's like, wait, when you retire, is that what you're going to do? Are you going to cut me out of your life? And he's like, I'm not retiring anytime soon. He's like, also, but he was like, you don't have to try so hard. He's like, yeah, okay. So it is the thing that he is trying so hard. We already saw that like in the season 1 finale, wanted to be like, because even he was like, oh, can I officially be your partner now and everything? He was like, oh, and then Donovan was like, yo, slow your roll. So I thought that was kind of interesting. We also, got an instant, maybe, I wonder how she popped up beforehand. His sister, I think this is the first time we've got introduced to her. I know part of me's wondering like, oh, I don't think she's popped up prior to now. But I also thought it was interesting, the whole Nora situation, because that kind of caught me off guard, because I wasn't expecting that. Even just for the tiny bit it's part of the episode, I wasn't expecting that. But him having snuck a phone, like in her bag or whatever, and it's like, what are you doing? And it seems like even he's not 100% sure, but I guess it's like maybe what she does, and obviously like the line of, what line of work that she does could potentially, get her in trouble. And obviously she's making it seem like she's okay and she's safe, but obviously we even see like the measure she's taking, because she's covering up like the peephole for the door, even like putting a chair in front of it, like obviously like what she does, people want her dead for it. Obviously we saw, like, wasn't that last episode, like someone literally took a shot at her, so it's understandable. But like obviously like her and Donovan, it's like it makes you wonder where that story is going. Like, why is it that he's taking an interest in her? I mean, is it simply because of, is it just her as a human being, just who she is and what she does? Or is it purely, like, I'm curious, like, where that story is going, why he has, what his plans are. He's like, I'm not trying to track you or anything. He just wants to make sure she's okay. And it's like, if you ever need me, call me, That's why I give you this phone and everything. So I just thought that was kind of a neat element. Then another side of this episode is Liam. Obviously, he was training with his friend earlier in the episode, Mal, which when I heard him call him, I didn't quite catch it the first time, but when you see the name written down, like on his phone, text-wise, I was like, oh, Mal, but then he says Mal, I was like, oh. I mean, the only reason why I say Mal is because of Mal from the Joe Budden podcast. It's, JBP boys are back at it again, regardless of tangents and all that. It's just interesting, like, that was just kind of what went to my mind. But I thought that was because immediately when he got the text and everything, Liam was like, wait, what? He goes to checks on his buddy, and it's like he killed himself. I was like, Jesus. And obviously all Liam can do is just like sit beside him, because like obviously it's like, he most likely has those thoughts too, but it's because it's like we both went through the same thing, and it's like probably a thing, especially because it's like he was just training with his friend earlier. They were supposed to meet up, but then his friend canceled. So it's like it's probably that thing of like, I thought you were okay. I wasn't 100% seeing the signs. Luckily, his friend's alive, but it's still that thing of like, it's got to hit you that like, I didn't see this coming. Like, I knew you went through some stuff, but like, you seem like you were maybe like, I feel like I'm the one spiraling, but it seemed like you were more okay than me. And if you didn't seem like, but that's the thing, and that's the sad thing, you never know what anyone's going through. You never know what kind of shitty day someone had, or, the experiences. So like, he might put on a front like he's okay, and it might be secretly suffering. Like, obviously they had conversations about it, so it seemed like obviously he knows what Liam was kind of going through, obviously, but it's like, Liam's like, to the point you're willing to take your life. And obviously he went back to the gym, and he didn't tell anything to Ross. He was just like, my friend, car accident. And, Ross is like, yeah, cars can be fixed. Yeah. And I was wondering why. I guess it's that thing of maybe Liam just doesn't do good at talking about stuff. But I think part of me was also wondering, is it a byproduct of what went down? It's like, is it because Ross's dad dying was so recent enough that obviously that's something he's still dealing with? So Liam probably doesn't want to bring up death in front of him, especially suicide. So I think maybe that's why. Maybe he's afraid that if Ross heard that, maybe Ross would look at him a different way. Maybe that's what he was afraid of. But I think it might have been with his dad, because it's like, obviously that's still a fresh enough wound. Obviously it's going to take a long time for that wound to even close a little bit. It will never probably fully close, but it will have, gotten smaller at least a little bit over the course of days. But obviously during, like, the moment, he was kind of like, oh, Liam, I could kick your ass. I was like, the moment he was like, oh, like the moment he was suggesting they spar or whatever, I was like, oh, that's not going to be a good idea. Liam's not in the right mindset. To the point during the practice, I was like, oh, this is going to go bad. Is it going to go bad? He's going to take it too far. And then while I'm having those thoughts, he ends up breaking Ross's arm, and Ross is acting like everything's okay. Obviously, Jenny's kind of freaking. It's like, oh, your arm's broken. He's like, no, it's good. But then Liam's over there drinking because he feels bad about it, but plus everything that's going on, he's like, I broke your son's arm. She's like, I didn't even realize it was you. He was like, normally I'm so in control, but like my friend, Mal, he tried to kill himself, and it's just, and he's even saying her like, hey, like, if you want me to leave, I will, And I think Ross is there trying to make it seem like he's like, no, it's okay. It was during training, so I think he doesn't want Liam to get in trouble, because obviously he likes Liam, and he knows how important she is to his mom and everything, how he is to Jenny. And I think it's a very, like, obviously once again I bring it up before, like, it's interesting because each of these characters, these three characters living under the same roof, are all dealing with trauma in their own way. There's not a lot of communication amongst each other about what they're. Ross seems like he's okay, but even everything else is he's a teenager, so I think he's still processing it in his own way. But obviously, like, Liam's got his demons just like Jenny's got hers. We've gotten more of an insight, obviously, because Jenny's the main character. We get more of a focus on hers, but obviously Liam's is there that we're kind of and I think that's and I think that lends itself to an interesting story between these two people who are with each other, who both have trauma that they're not really talking to each other about necessarily. I mean, granted, we don't know in between episodes, like, while conversations go down, but it doesn't seem like they're really talking to each other about everything. And then obviously Jenny, her dad, being brought home by a cop because he was wandering around that property. He was like, no, I was trying to, meet with the people, you gave me this card and everything. And she was like, yeah, she's having to break the news to her dad because it's like he wanted to kind of, get to know the people working on the stuff that could potentially help him. And it is just like, yeah, it was probably just like another twist to the knife of like, her heart being broken, because it was like, this is something she was actually hopeful for, that it could help her dad. And, I think probably the thing of, you feel like you gave your dad some hope and now you have to take that hope away from him. So a lot of interesting things in this episode. I'm curious to see ultimately where all of this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.